Alright guys, today is pretty exciting for me. I hope it's exciting for you as well. I'm going to look back at this trophy truck build and I'm going to see what I did right, what I did wrong, which there's a lot of, and most importantly, how I would do this whole project differently if I was able to go back in time and start from scratch. Now before we get into that, first things first, I can't keep calling this a trophy truck. It drives me absolutely bonkers, and based on a lot of the comments, especially over the last couple of weeks, it drives you guys crazy as well. It's neither a trophy nor a truck. Now, I had one suggestion to name it Miles, based on the color scheme, and I love that idea, but that's not really fair to Ken Miles to have something this ugly named after him. So what I've decided is that Miles will be its nickname, and its full name will be Fugly Miles. Not because it's f***ing ugly, which it is, but because it is functionally ugly, and I'm fine with that. So, Fugly Miles, that's what I'm going to call it from now on, or Miles for short. Now before we get into what I should have done, let's take a look at what had to be fixed or repaired in order to get it back out into the desert for its second trip. So we'll jump to that. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the fuel tank and enlarge the hole around the filler neck. It's a little bit too tight and there is a little bit of movement while she's driving around, and I don't want this to tear. That would be very annoying. The next thing I have to do is add a fuel gauge. It's a little bit annoying to not have one, so I'm going to remove the gauge that was going to the rear def temperature sensor that never ended up making it in here, and I think that's it, at least to get it out in the dirt. So let's jump on that now. So I forgot to film fixing the fuel tank, but it was pretty straightforward. I pulled the tank out, and then you see this is just an old hose. It's like a high pressure fuel hose, so it's quite thick, and then I cut it down the middle so that I could put it around that metal on the tank and then keep it from cutting itself. Pretty simple. Now onto the gauges. Alright, I've got the new fuel gauge in there. It went in real easy, same as the other ones. And of course it was already pre-wired, if you remember from before, into the switch, so all I have to do is plug it in and it should be good to go. Now this VDO gauge, let me show you something interesting about this. The gauge that I went with, the sweep, is from 10 ohm to 180 ohm. Now the factory sending unit is from 16 to 158. Now fuel gauges can be awfully expensive, especially when you get into an unusual setting like 16 to 158. A lot of times the aftermarket runs will be like a 0 to 90 or a 33 to 240 ohm, you know, something just universal. So in this case, if you notice the blue area here, this is how far my sweep is going to be. So when I'm actually empty, it'll still show as though I have about 1/8 of a tank or so. And then when I'm topped off, it's still going to show that I have 1/8 to go. So I just need to keep that in mind. Obviously, this isn't a daily driver, so I wanted to try this out and kind of see how it works. So if you guys remember in that one episode where I had that cool suspension shot while I was test driving around the streets, we saw that the bushings for the sway bar are pretty bad. I had a ton of people tell me just rip this thing off. It is useless off-road. And they're right. I kept it on because I wanted it to behave better on the street, and it does make a pretty dramatic difference from experience on other vehicles to keep them on the street. But I'm going to take it out and into the dirt, hopefully tomorrow, maybe the next day. And so I'm going to pull this off and we'll see how it does. I anticipate it'll do much better in the dirt. Guys, the audio gremlin struck this file here, so I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but I did want to point out that you have to remove not only the tire, but the rotor to get to that one bolt on that sway bar. It was a little bit annoying, but it's gone now. One thing I didn't notice, if you look at this fitting on the top of the coilover of the rear, when the axle's bouncing up and down, it changes obviously the angle of the coilover, and then it's making contact here with right up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the angle grinder out and make a little cut there on both sides, just so that it doesn't eventually wear through that fitting and then start leaking. Much better. Guys, this cricket found its way into this little ashtray here, and he's missing a rear leg. Do you guys think this cricket was born that way, or do you think he lost it in the war? He can't get out of this. Poor little guy. Let's see if he does all right without it. See you later, buddy. Good luck. Getting ready to head out. What do you think?
Ready to go.
Tad, are you ready to go?
I don't know.
Can I get thumbs up? Nice. Now, unfortunately today, there's really nowhere to jump out here. We're at the Four Peaks staging area, right at the entrance of the Four Peaks Trail. If you continue right there, there's Four Peaks. So we're not gonna make it the whole way up to the top. We're basically just gonna take a little winding road up part of the way here. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna have the camera set up so we can keep an eye on this front suspension, and then I have another GoPro set up underneath on the cross member facing the rear suspension. So we're gonna use those cameras to try and see how much travel we're getting, where the bump stops are making contact, that kind of thing. All right, so let's jump right into this rear drive shaft shot. Now what I'm focusing on here is the passenger side bump stop, because you can get a really good look at it when it's hitting these bumps. And I want to make sure that I'm not getting too close to that bump stop during normal, washboard roads and pretty good bumps. I only want to make contact with that when I'm really, slamming it into the ground or really hitting like giant holes and that kind of thing. And it's doing pretty good. That's exactly what I was hoping for. The suspension's quite soft. You see how just ferocious this washboard is on this rear end. It's just bouncing around like crazy, but it held up really well. I was quite impressed with it. Very smooth. All right, onto the front suspension. Now I wish I would have had the same shot with the GoPro that was a lot lower before when I had this on the street, just so you can see that bump stop better, but I think this is a good shot of that coilover doing its job. These coilovers are quite overkill for this project. They've got about twice as much travel available as to what I'm using them for, but they're getting the job done, and they're dialed in pretty close. They still need just a little bit of work. I did have one little incident with Miles here. There was a double hairpin turn, so when I made the left turn, I ended up giving it a little bit too much throttle. Here it is coming up right here. So I make this left turn, I gave a little bit too much throttle, and the Spartan locker locked up straight, and the front tires didn't have much grip, and it tried to send me over the edge here. But luckily, I'll show you the other angle. I had a couple of feet before would have gone over, and then those little trees would have slowed me down enough, giving me that last little second chance before we went over the edge. And I'm going to show you what would happen if I did go over the edge in just a second here, because there was a red F-150 that we saw later in the day that did not fare quite as well. Guys, we've got an F-150 that was having a bad day. I'm gonna go climb down there, make sure no one's inside. Alright guys, here's how it looks like down here. No bodies inside, thank God. No blood, no issues. It just looks like it rolled. As long as there were only two people in the front, they would have been able to get out. That door still opens and closes. Let me see if I can show you. Here's how it looks like in here. Ooh. Someone had a bad day. did you like driving the trophy truck?
To be honest,
Yeah.
I can't believe how fast it was.
Yeah?
Yeah. So, you know, I was having anxiety about this. So, when I was in there, I was strapped down so far that I couldn't like have like much movement. So I was like shocked about that. And then I hit the gas pedal and it just like took off.
Yeah.
And so I can't believe how much power is behind that.
Yeah. Now you got to drive it after me. So when I was driving it, did you think that it was going to be that fast when you started driving it?
No, I didn't think it was going to be that sensitive to
Gotcha.
like just take off.
Now when we were driving down the dirt road in the Dodge and then we drove down that same dirt road in the trophy truck, what was the difference?
Okay, so we all had to use the bathroom by the time we got there. And those bumps, we were all like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we're going to make it. And it felt like we were snail's pace, like going 2 miles per hour, boom, 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 in the Dodge. And then when we did the trophy truck and we went just on the dirt road the very first second, we were gliding. You were going so fast. I don't know how fast you were going, but it felt like there was not even one bump. It was so smooth.
Nice.
We definitely need the eye protection because I got hit by like 17 bugs in the eyes. Do you remember that grasshopper that landed in?
Yeah. He was a cute little guy. He wanted a joyride.
My goggle and like fell down and he flew away.
Oh
I mean, he was A-okay, so.
Do you think I should have put a windshield on it?
No. You know why?
Why?
Because I love taking pictures with no glares or dirty spots.
That's right. And dust.
So, I mean, it's just beautiful. You can actually see everything and enjoy it.
Is it ugly?
I don't think it's ugly.
Really?
I really don't. It's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely weird.
But it's not. I mean, it fits 5 people.
Yeah.
A spare tire.
Yep.
See, I don't think it's ugly, but I'm sitting inside it when we're driving, so I don't really care.
So we don't have to take a look at it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I told you earlier that I'm naming her Fugly Miles because she is functionally ugly, and Miles because I love that suggestion. Now, the functionally ugly comes from the fact that the windows are obviously oversized, comically large. But I can't emphasize enough how important it was to me to be able to get in and out of the vehicle easily, especially for the wife and kiddos. And the back window, the really weird shaped one, was built that way because I needed to be able to fit the seats in and out. That's the only way to get the seats in and out. So I kept getting little responses here and there. Hey, it'd be better if you did this, if it would look like this if you did this, and it'd be nicer and all that. And for the most part, I kind of ignored them because I was never willing to address the looks beyond as far as I made it, because it just didn't matter to me. And honestly, I didn't think there was any saving it. After I did the sheet metal, I thought, this is kind of cool looking. And then I painted it and thought, oh no, it's all lost. There's no coming back from this. This is just an ugly vehicle. I accidentally built an ugly vehicle. And that happens, especially when you're on a super tight budget. And if you remember, I was doing like one step at a time, not thinking this thing through. I specifically didn't think this thing through. I was just seeing how it went and going with the flow and bending up the tubes. And then I was on such a budget that there were a few tubes that I bent incorrectly, and I just had to use them somewhere else because I didn't have enough money to bend more tubing. Now, a majority of the views for this trophy truck came in the last 2 weeks. I'm not sure how the Google algorithms worked, but for some reason, that's how a lot of you made it here, through Google. And in the last couple of weeks, I've gotten flooded with comments, hundreds of comments on each video along the way. And so I've been able to kind of see a pattern. And almost everybody said the same thing. Those windows are bigger than the doors. It makes it look disgusting. It makes it look like the front end is way too high, like the vehicle itself is kind of bent, and it makes the roof line awful. It's just disgusting all the way around. So I mocked up with construction paper the design that almost everyone suggested. Almost all the suggestions were exactly the same. Do this, this, and this. I did exactly that. The whole time I thought it was totally fruitless and stupid. But now that it's done, I look at it and I think, damned if they weren't right. I really think that you guys were onto something, because I didn't think there was any coming back from the ugliness. Let me show you what it looks like now, and then you guys can decide if you want me to turn the construction paper into metal and paint it. All right, here it is. Now, not only was everyone complaining about the size of the windows, a lot of complaints, I don't mean complaints in a bad way, I just mean suggestions rather. A lot of the suggestions were, hey, you need a lot more orange. I had a lot of people saying that they wanted this rear fender orange or stripe or this lower section or something like that. This kind of kills a couple birds with one stone here because it gives us more orange with the orange window netting, and then it fills out this area here to make the fake doors look proportional. And I tell you, I really thought that this was just stupid and that it wasn't going to look good, but I think it looks pretty good this way. Borderline nice. I'm not going to say it looks nice. It's still a weird wagon, but it definitely looks better. Let me show you the other side, how it currently is, just to refresh the old memory. Ugh, this is way worse. This back window, for me, ugh, that line is just disgusting. But when I was putting, I already had that tube in, I already had this tube in, and I was building the sheet metal. I could have built the sheet metal up higher, but then I was gonna have to do more metal framing, and I kept measuring this area here to see if I could fit these giant seats in, and there was just no way to get those seats in otherwise. So that's why it ended up so goofy like that. And then the front, of course, I just wanted it to be easy to get into. And this is where the natural door line started on the fiberglass. I'm not really sure why. And you know, this thing got so chopped up to holy hell, who knows what was going on with it. But this is before, or current, I guess I should say. And then this is after. I think it's worth doing. It'll take me, from what I figure, it'll take me 1 week, about 3 or 4 days to do all the metal and then paint it, and then another day for video editing to get you guys a video of it. So I'm gonna go grab the wife and I'm gonna see what she says.
I just killed these 2 flies mating.
You just did what?
I just killed these 2 flies mating.
Man, they were just trying to have a good time.
Flies are disgusting.
All right.
They were horse flies.
Ew. So what do you think?
I mean, looks good, but I don't think it's a huge difference. I don't know.
So you don't think it's worth doing?
No. I think it's nice and easy to get out of and into it. That's a really small hole.
That's what she said. It's super tiny, and it would be super annoying to climb in and out of it. Like obnoxiously annoying.
Right.
But we must give the people what they want. But they hated how big, they hated that the window was bigger than the door, and they hated the weird shape in the rear. I never cared about any of that, and I honestly thought they were crazy when people kept saying, oh, if you just do this or you just do that. But now that I see it, I think they were 100% right. And I hate the idea of doing form over function on this, but if the windows are, if these little sections are removable, then we can decide if we want to take it out with or without them. And we can have the window netting in if it's going to get really crazy. That'll make it a lot safer. And then we can take it all off if we would just want to cruise. What do you say? Should we give the people what they want?
You can ask them.
What do you think they're going to say?
They're going to say leave it.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll find out. All right, guys, should I leave it or should I build 2 little removable door sections and then get the window netting all installed? It's up to you guys. All right, guys, it's time to do a report card on this build. For frame of reference, this is what my high school report card looked like. Now, for this build, I have a total of 529 hours into it. A lot of people were asking if I logged them, and if so, how many I had. Why, hello there. You want to say hi to everybody? Now, for the engine and transmission, I give that a B+. The reason is I moved it too far back. I should have moved it about 11 to 15 inches. I moved it 30 inches. I was super concerned about the center of gravity. I wanted it really low, and I wanted the weight balance more towards the rear because I was concerned about traction on a 2-wheel drive. Both of those were probably mistakes. I probably could have moved it forward a little bit and up a little bit, and it would have been better. As far as suspension goes, I give that a B. The coilovers that I used were totally overkill. They had far more travel than I was able to use, so they cost a little bit more, but I was having trouble sourcing other ones, and I didn't get enough travel to justify such nice coilovers. Electrical, A+. Haven't had one failure on any electrical wire anywhere. It's flawless. The lighting, I give that an A+ too, because all of the lights, including the taillights, was like $60. It's like $40 for the front headlights, $13 for the regular headlights, and like 20 bucks for the taillights. They're awesome. They're all LEDs. They're super bright. Everything works great. The exhaust, I give it a B. It sounds exactly like a big block with no cats and Flowmaster Series 40s. I've heard 1,000 vehicles with that exact configuration, and that is exactly what it sounds like. And so it sounds faster than it is, just because it sounds like a big block and it's a little old 4.6. I'm probably going to have to quiet it down. I'm definitely going to have to quiet it down. You have to wear hearing protection with it. It's right at 90, 92 decibels. The legal limit's 96, so it's about as loud as a loud motorcycle, and it's just obnoxious. So give that a B. Everything on it was welded nice, and there's no leaks, but it's just too loud. Tires and wheels, I give them an A. They're fantastic. I got 5 of them for 500 bucks. They're pretty worn down, but they hold air and they're good, so I give that an A. The seats, I give them a C. The back seats are awesome. I give those an A. The front seats, they're Chinese garbage. They're just crappy seats. They're already starting to split. Fuel system, I give that an A, but it's almost all Crown Vic. It's just all Crown Vic parts with just some high pressure lines, so not a lot to it. The body, give it a D-. It's hideous. And I should have never touched fiberglass. If I could have just never had any fiberglass, I would have had plenty of money for hydraulic bump stops, which would have improved the suspension, and then I would have just built a steel body myself. For some reason, I thought that I would save weight with the fiberglass, and I didn't. And for some reason, I was expecting to put the fiberglass body around it, but none of the proportions worked. And if you guys follow this from the beginning, you know it was just one bad turn after another. Totally useless, waste of time. D-. Craftsmanship, I give this a B. The only reason is because I had a bunch of CO2 gas lying around, and I used CO2 on my welder, so the welds aren't quite as clean as they would have been if I would have used a CO2 argon blend. And so I'm a little bit sad, you know, when people look really close, the welds aren't quite as good as they should be. Other than that, everything's fine. Some of the bead rolls I was a little fast on too, because I was just being quick and dirty. So like there's little, you know, curves to them and all that, but I give it a B. It's fine. For the rear locker, I give that an A+. I love that Spartan locker. I'm going to use it in other vehicles. I was able to get one tire in the rear up in the air, and I was able to give it, you know, some throttle, and it crawled right up, no problem. So it's a true locker. Like it's 100% locked as long as you're under power. And then when you're not under power and you have good traction on the street and you're making a turn, you can force, you know, you can kind of anticipate and force, you know, click, 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 get that rear end out. And then you can wait until you're close to straightened up and then give it some accelerator and launch it on them. So it's a really good locker, especially for the price. That's all I've got for my report card. Now let's look at what I should have done. All right, guys, I did a drawing of how it turned out and how I would do it again if I were to do this project again. On the top here, you see I've got the silhouette of Fugly Miles here. The center of gravity is super low because the motor is back 30 inches, as low as it could go in the cradle. The seats were as low as I could possibly fit them in that custom little cockpit around here. The rear seat is as low as it can be, knowing that it has to get over that hump in the frame. And then I squatted the roof down as low as it could go. Basically just squat everything down low, try and keep the center of gravity low, move the motor back as far as possible. I ended up with a weight balance of 45, 55, and 3,200 pounds. So it has fantastic weight distribution and has really good performance, but we both know the sacrifice is that it is hideous and that it was a lot of extra work. This is what I would do if I were to do it again. I would make it look exactly like an old Bronco. I would move the motor back 11 inches instead of 30. It would give me a longer drive line, which would allow me 2 inches more of rear travel. The weight distribution would probably end up about 55-45, so not quite as good, but still considerably better than a stock old Bronco, and quite honestly, better than almost any modern pickup truck. Let's see, what would we sacrifice? We would sacrifice the center of gravity because I would make the seats much higher. It would give it a more traditional look. I really didn't want to do that. I wanted it as low as possible for safety, but the reality is I'm not really going to race this thing. I'm just going to play around with it. And if I have something to play around with, I can get away with a little bit higher center of gravity. It's not going to go as fast, but that's not the point of this build, really. The point of this build would be to have something that would be more comfortable to cruise around town in and more comfortable to go slower off-roading in. Also, you wouldn't have the issue of having to get in through the windows because I would build a custom door that would, you know, match it. It would look exactly like an old Bronco from maybe 50 feet away or so, and then you get up close and realize that the entire outer skin was all custom fabbed. This probably would have been less work, and it would have looked better, and I would have liked it more. I would have put a windshield on it, so it would have been easier to get street legal, and I would have titled it as a Special Construct 66 Bronco so that I would have cheaper insurance and registration and all that. What else? I guess that's it. This is what I would do if I would do it again. I don't think I'm going to. But I will keep this in mind in case I decide to do a four-wheel drive project, which I am leaning towards. I'm leaning towards doing a custom-built 4x4, so everything will be built from scratch, not using any existing frame, but I would use a donor vehicle that would already start off with four-wheel drive, something with straight axles. So it'd be straight axle, four-wheel drive, something wrecked, and then I would put that underneath everything custom-built to look like an old Bronco. But that's for a later date, to be determined. Alright guys, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. The next couple of weeks is going to be all F350, the 79 Rusto mod that I'm building. I just felt like I left you guys hanging a little bit with episode 22 of the trophy truck build. There were still some kind of loose ends. I didn't know what I was going to finish and what I wasn't, and I was getting a lot of comments on that, so that's why I made this video today. Sorry if it was a little boring. A lot of it was just me going over things, but they can't all be super fun technical builds. Now on a personal note, I'm wearing my Navy hat today. Great news for all of you in America. My cousin Robbie joined the Navy and he just graduated from basic training, and I am so excited for him. Right now he's in Fort Sam Houston going through corpsman training, and he should be done with that later this year. But I feel like that's good for all of America because he is exactly the kind of individual that I like to see representing the armed forces, and it's good to have another Coulson representing. So I just want to let you guys know. That's it. See you guys next week.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.